From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
The senator most claim has been instrumental in building that pressure is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee, and he joins us now. Senator, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Tony, it is good to be back on with you again.
So, Senator, we're hearing that warnings that there is intense effort underway to hack into American institutions, not only from China, but from Russia, and in the usual characters, targeting the work that's being done on vaccines and treatments for the coronavirus.
Yeah, Tony, no one should be surprised. The Chinese Communist Party in particular is using many of the techniques it's used for years to try to steal American ideas, ingenuity, and property at this most critical time of research for drugs and vaccines about the coronavirus. China's been doing this for years, whether it's in agriculture and other biological sciences or in information technology like computer chips or semiconductors, military technology as well from our defense contractors. So that's exactly what they want to do now. There's obviously a desire to protect their own people. There's a desire to be able to use any potential drugs or vaccines as geopolitical leverage for countries that don't have them. And then, of course, there's just the profit motive as well, desire to reap the financial rewards of developing that kind of drug or vaccine. All those are at work at the Chinese Communist Party, once again being up to its old tricks of hacking and theft.
Now, do we know, is this also intended to hinder the research being done in the United States? Because I can't imagine that once we develop a vaccine here in the United States that we will not share it with the rest of the world. So is there an ulterior motive here? You say profit, but are they also trying to hinder the United States from developing that vaccine?
So there's no doubt that our scientists, our medical researchers are the world leading in the field, better than China's, obviously. China is a communist authoritarian government. Free inquiry and scientific research never flourishes in such a society. They are hacking in part because they need to. But if they can hack into a company or a leading laboratory university that is researching drugs or vaccines, and even if they haven't developed, they can get a head start so they can get, a few months worth of data, then yeah, they might be able to get ahead with that head start of what American researchers and scientists have done. And they would love to have the market cornered on therapeutic drugs or vaccines. And it's like you say, if America has it, obviously we would share it with the rest of the world once our people are protected. I can't say the same thing about China. It kind of reminds me of the old line about America had a nuclear monopoly in 1945 to 1949, yet we did not use it to our advantage to exploit a single country in the world. Imagine if the shoe were on the other foot and it had been the Soviet Union with the nuclear monopoly in 1945, how different the world would have looked. You could say the same thing about China and any kind of therapeutic drug or vaccine related to the coronavirus.
Senator Tom Cotton, the Chinese government now pushing back pretty intently on the pressure that's been building by the Secretary of State, but also they're naming you as a key component of building this pressure because you were, quite frankly, the first one out there raising alarms about the virus. But they also point to the fact that you have a plan that would basically reset the relationship with China.
Tony, this reminds me of what an old drill sergeant of mine used to say: "Is that you must be close to the target if you start taking fire." So anytime the Chinese Communist Party starts attacking me by name, I know I must be on the right path. I've got a big plan to reset our relationship with China. Most fundamentally, we need to reset the balance of power with China. That's why I propose spending $43 billion on our military and our critical homeland security infrastructure to make sure that we have the weapons like mid-range missiles, that we have the ships and we have the submarines, the aircraft designed to offset China's ambitions in the Western Pacific. That is all designed not to have to win a war against China. That is designed to deter China from ever trying to start a military conflict with the United States. But it goes beyond that as well. It's resetting our economic relationship because, unfortunately, we have underwritten to a large degree China's military expansion over the last 30 years. and their aggressive dollar diplomacy of trying to buy off allies around the world by sending them our factories and our jobs. It is time to stop that. It's time to bring back the most critical kinds of work into this country. That's why I've got legislation that would incentivize people to build pharmaceutical manufacturing in the United States and certainly force them to get it out of China. But we could replicate that approach across a whole number of fields, Tony. We could do it in the telecom field and the information technology and field. Just like we don't let a foreign country, much less a foreign adversary, be a part of our defense industry, we ought not let them be a part of any other industry that is vital for the security, the prosperity, and the health of the American people.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a moment when we're talking about our food supply, but I want to follow on this for just a moment because, to my knowledge, you're the only one who has a comprehensive plan. Many members have introduced measures related to the coronavirus and seeking compensation and the medical equipment and such, but the Wall Street Journal, even today, writing about your plan, saying that you have a plan that's explicitly designed to take advantage of the crisis to roll back Chinese power. And as you pointed out, this deals with every sector. And this is a moment that may not be repeated when we can recalibrate this relationship so that it's beneficial to the United States and our interest.
Yeah. The American people see China as a pariah state now, and they're right to see China as a pariah state. So many of the measures we've discussed, or some other measures that I would propose as well, are ripe because of the political support we see from the American people, and not just Republicans and independents, Tony. If you look at polling, a lot of Democrats support taking a tougher line with China as well. And it may not be, the woke left, in Washington and New York and LA and San Francisco, but just ordinary, regular Democrats out in the middle of the country who may not see eye to eye with me on certain economic or social matters. They understand that China is a threat to our way of life, maybe an even graver threat than the Soviet Union ever was. And then it's time that we stood up to China and we asserted ourselves and we checked their ambitions. And we didn't continue to underwrite the growth of Chinese power. So China was not popular before they unleashed this pandemic on the world. You can only imagine what that's like now.
But, Senator Cotton, to validate this concern, we can look at the actions they've taken since this virus was unleashed on the world. I mean, the moves that they have made since the rest of the world was focused on dealing with the virus would indicate that they do have global ambitions that are incompatible with the freedom that we pursue.
Yeah, Tony, unfortunately, there's no doubt about that. Look, they just arrested a lot of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, calling into question whether or not they're going to respect Hong Kong's basic law, to which they agreed when Great Britain ceded Hong Kong back to China. They've demanded heads of state to show up at airports and kowtow to Beijing if China sends them personal protective equipment. There have been reports that they have demanded that if you want personal protective equipment or drugs from China, you have to agree to take Huawei to build your fifth-generation wireless network. Huawei, of course, being the telecom giant, which is really just an arm of the Chinese state. So there's no doubt that they are trying to exploit this pandemic now to accelerate their ultimate ambition, which is to replace the United States as the world's preeminent military and economic power.
Senator Tom Cotton, I want to go to another issue. We talked about the military issues. We've talked about medical devices here in the past. But one thing I've not talked about on the program, because quite frankly, was not that aware of it. But now that we're facing some food shortages, primarily in the meat industry, pork supplies have tightened. This is something that touches in your state. When you look at Tyson's Food, I think one of the largest meat providers, chicken in the United States. But one of the things that I was shocked by was that Smithfield Foods is owned by China's WH Group. And while the amount of pork being slaughtered each day has plunged by about 40% since mid-March, shipments of American pork to China has more than quadrupled over that same period. We're raising the food here, and it's going to China.
Yeah. Well, the fact that Smithfield is owned by a Chinese company, and has been for the last 7 years, just is a good example of why politicians in Washington haven't been taking this threat seriously enough. I think all Americans now recognize that our food supply chain is one of our most vital national interests, and that we haven't done enough to protect it. So in 2013, there should have been a serious look at the sale that allowed the WH Group to buy Smithfield Foods.
Absolutely. I mean,
It also highlights but Tony, it also highlights the incompetence and the corruption of the Chinese Communist Party. One reason why they are buying up so much American meat is that they had to slaughter millions of their own hogs last year because they couldn't protect them from illness. So this predates the pandemic, but now China is exporting it to an even greater degree. And again, it's just a reminder of how much we have underwritten China's rise to great power status.
And it underscores the need to reset this relationship at this moment because we are vulnerable in so many ways.
Absolutely,
Senator,
Tony.
thanks so much for your work on this, and thanks again for joining us as we continue to look at this important relationship between the United States and China.